So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon for some of you. The UNFCCC's COP28, starting in a couple of days from now, is set to accelerate climate action, strengthen commitments under the Paris Agreement, and drive innovation in sustainable practices. But what are the implications of these high-level discussions and emerging regulations for micro and small-sized businesses, such as an agro-processing enterprise in Morocco, a small-sized textile manufacturer in Turkey, or a medium-sized construction firm in Uzbekistan? What challenges does the green transition pose for SMEs, who are often already at a competitive disadvantage compared to their larger counterparts? Could the ramifications of climate change and climate action offer unexpected opportunities for SMEs to reimagine their business model and expand their operations? These are the questions we are posing in our four-part webinar series titled Driving the Green Transition: How SMEs Can Navigate Climate Challenges and Grow Sustainably, which will run from the 28th of November to the 7th of December 2023 and throughout COP28. Today is our first webinar, and it is called Growing Greener: Climate Risks, Solutions and Opportunities in Agro-Food Processing. Let me start with just a few key facts. Agri-food systems produce 11 billion tons of food a year, employing 4 billion people directly or indirectly. According to the FAO, global food production must increase by 60% to meet the projected demand by 2050. According to the World Bank, SMEs represent over 90% of all businesses in the food and agriculture sector in many developing countries. And the agri-food industry accounts for approximately 26% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Another statistic about food waste: 1.4 billion tons of food waste are generated annually, which is up to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions, representing over $1 trillion in value and equivalent to more than 500 calories per person per day. But there are many positive technological developments as well that can counter this. For example, precision agriculture technologies, including drones and satellite imaging, are expected to grow 13.6% between 2021 and 2026, enhancing farm productivity and sustainability. Now, before turning to our expert speakers, a bit of housekeeping. First of all, this webinar is being recorded. Second, participants can submit your questions via the chat function. And third, interpretation is available in Armenian, Georgian, Ukrainian, Azerbaijani, Russian, and Mongolian. And now I would like to pass the floor to my colleague Irida Kechachi, who is our Associate Director for Agribusiness Advisory at the EBRD. Irida will introduce this topic from the perspective of the bank. Over to you, Irida.
Thank you very much, Richard. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. It's daunting when you hear the numbers that Richard was sharing with us, how food systems need to adapt and really deliver for a growing population. And as the title of this seminar is telling us, there might be solutions and there might be opportunities for banks like us investing alongside private sector clients, as well as large and small companies that we as a bank assist and support with financing and with advisory services. For the EBRD, having the ambition of being a green bank, we assist private sector clients of all sizes to really deal with this transition towards food systems that are greener and are also inclusive. I'm part of the agribusiness team who supports and lends directly to companies, and we do lend about 800–900 million euros per year in 60 to 70 projects across our geographies. But we do much more towards our PFIs and towards also advisory services that we provide to companies. Climate risks are something that we all are aware of, and we can see it on the news. And agribusiness companies are also increasingly aware of the importance of building climate resiliencies in their own strategies. Risk associated with climate change have significant implication on the food system as a whole and on SMEs as well as large companies. Extreme weather events like droughts, floods, storms can disrupt supply chain and damage crops. This results in increasing cost for all of you that lead businesses and operations, be it an SME or a larger company, but also has a creates a problem and a challenge for the overall food system that are unable to really deliver for a growing population. So growing green for a growing population, we would need to produce more food in a more sustainable way. We would need to find solution and adapt to the events that are challenging us. The most important 3 or 4 categories of risks that we do take into consideration when talking to associations, to SMEs, to our client, to the private sector, things that are on their mind, of course, as these extreme weather events. SMEs are vulnerable to disruptions, to supply chains distractions, and these supply chain disruptions potentially are putting up the cost and availability of raw materials for SMEs or for large companies alike. Fostering supply chains that are resilient could also mean diversifying sources and suppliers and engaging more at the local level, for example, and adopting tools like circular economy practices to reduce the dependence on resource-intensive inputs. We've seen a lot of it also in the COVID times where value chain has been shortened, and this maybe was a test. But with these increasingly climate risks that are coming, what else can be done? What solution can be put in place? What a bank like the BRD can assist its clients in dealing with these risks? There are also a lot of regulatory changes. We've seen positive changes through the Paris alignment, the Paris Agreement, in which all of our operations need to respect the terms of these agreements and really strive for greening the food systems. But what does it mean for SMEs? Regulatory changes can pose challenges. SMEs can be unprepared for compliance requirement, and this potentially can lead to penalties for these SMEs. So how can SME and companies alike and banks stay informed about this changing regulation, participate in industry association to influence policies and adopt sustainable practices to align with these future expectations? This is a bit the role of our advisory services, where we accompany these clients to really meet the requirements and reach out to not only the demand that they were also serving, but also to external and more far markets where their products that are processed products can be actually put into new markets with new requirements and more stringent requirements. There is also another category that might be on your in your mind when we think about risks, and we've seen it with COVID, we've seen it lately with inflation, and is energy price volatility. Fluctuating energy prices driven by climate-related factors can impact operation costs for SMEs. We've been, as a bank, investing in energy efficiency technology for a long time. We were the pioneers, and we have a whole department that follows our clients to find ways to minimize their impact, their green gas emission impact, and we know how food systems really contribute heavily to this. But what does it mean having access to knowledge, having access to technology for SMEs that are located in many different countries? The bank is really taking seriously this question, and is posing this question to our own financial teams as well, to craft financial instruments and advisory services that can be tailored to SMEs in all countries. And I'm pleased to know that many of you are located in our countries of operations, and many of you are connected to us in some way. So I really wish this panel to not only discuss the problems, but also some of the solutions, and to craft some programs by which together we can really green the food systems, not only for SMEs and companies, but also to produce more sustainably the food we all need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Irida. Thank you for introducing this very practical perspective for SMEs who need to stay informed of changing regulations, have the agility to adapt in order to reach new markets, and have the tools to enable them to reduce energy costs. I'm going to introduce in a moment our three very qualified panelists who come from the worlds of engineering and advisory and agtech, and can go into much greater detail on these topics that you had introduced, Irida. But first, I want to introduce our keynote speaker for this webinar. Jacopo Mancini is a Senior Natural Resources Management Officer at the FAO, and he has over 20 years of international experience managing environment, climate change adaptation, urban agriculture, and biodiversity portfolios with the FAO, with IFAD, and with the UN Department for Peacekeeping Operations, the Italian government, and international NGOs. His experience ranges from the design of climate and agriculture investment projects and programs to management and supervision of large portfolios. He has over 10 years of field experience in complex and fragile scenarios in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Central America. Jacopo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here and very glad that EBRD involved me and FAO in this excellent and very interesting conference webinar. Let me share with you a few slides. I promise there will be very few and very simple. Let me start, sorry, just 1 second. All right, so let's first look at climate. So Agri-Food, Iride just mentioned it, Richard mentioned it. Agri-Food systems, so agriculture in general, and all the businesses related to agriculture are both, let's say, actors, direct causes and victims at the same time of climate change. Agri-food systems can contribute to up to 37% of global emissions, which is quite high. It is a very complex set of different contributions at different stages. As you can see, it involves, of course, agriculture. So the way food or raw materials, let's not forget this as well. We have food and raw materials that are produced by agriculture. We have land use, very often neglected and not considered, and especially land use and land cover changes. So if I have a forest or a natural environment, another type of natural environments before farming, then this contributes to our to the emissions of our production. And then, of course, we have all the emissions related to the processing, the transport, and the remaining steps along value chains. Now, overall, as I said, this contributes between 21 and 37% of global emissions, and it's, of course, a very complex system to address, and we will see it in a while. What do we have to consider? When we look at emissions, we have the emissions that are directly related to our production and activities. So what you see here as scope 1, so the yellow arrow. So these are activities your companies can control directly. Then we have scope 2 that you can partially control in the sense that it's the way you purchase these items. And as well scope 3, but scope 2, it's mostly related, it's only related to energy, and energy is a key factor. We will see it in a few seconds. But as well, emissions are a consequence of all the upstream and the downstream activities, which means that they are not directly related to your processes, but they are very much related to the choices that your company will make. One example, if you process raw materials that have used mineral inputs, for example, your footprint is likely higher. If you, on the contrary, if you go for more organic products, your footprint is likely to be lower. This is not a conditio sine qua non, but it's a good indicator as well. At the same time, as we were saying, agriculture and the agri-food systems are it's probably the most exposed sector to the adverse impact of climate change. I will not go through all the different impacts we all know about, but what makes it different from the other sector, in addition to be exposed to crops, to extreme weather events, including floods and droughts, wildfire, a constant and well documented increase in temperature that is really modifying and jeopardizing the entire system. What we have is that the practices that agriculture is currently or by large using are no longer sufficient for advanced food systems that now needs to factor in climate change. In other words, adaptation needs are also depending on the way we do agriculture, the way we purchase products, the way we process products, the way we sell, transport, and communicate about products. So when we move to processing and retail, we also have that the sector will be heavily affected. Iride already mentioned that there are and there will be more problems along the supply chain. It will be harder to source certain products. They will be most likely more expensive. Others will be cheaper or more available. Others will have changes in the quality of products. Olive oil, for example, I mean, not relevant for all the countries, but it's a good example. Olive oil is one of the value chain that is mostly affected because it affects not only the quantities available in the market, but also the quality of the product in the market. So this affects both retailers because they will not be able to provide customers with homogeneous and constant in time products, but they will also affect processors because they will not have, again, the capacity to provide standardized and constantly homogeneous products. And then finally, producers will have to compete in areas that are not just related to the very same product. So my flour is better than this other one and has a higher content of protein or a lower content of other elements, but you will also be facing a new type of competitions that is related to the capacity of companies to demonstrate their sustainability, their carbon neutrality, their capacity to access, for example, carbon markets or other markets that are currently being developed, and that relates to biodiversity and others aspect of sustainability. Then another big caveat, agriculture overall, so agri-food systems have received really marginal regularly attention. So it's very hard to find standards, it's very hard to find a very strong governance, especially about sustainability and carbon neutrality. And additionally, while industrial products are easily derivable into linear processes, agriculture is absolutely non-linear and it's context based. So, and then finally, higher exposure and emission factors, for example, scope 3 and scope 2, may depend on variables that are external to agri-food system. Just to give you an example, if I am a retailer or a processor and I'm producing in a country that did not invest in renewable energy in the past decades, then today I may, for example, be blocked in some export markets, or in all cases, I will not be able to lower my footprint to an extent that will be sufficient to be certified or to access new markets or to access the traditional markets. So you see, and the company will have very little capacity to address this and will have to invest additional resources eventually in other type of solutions like offsettings and other type of carbon markets. An additional element that is rarely considered but is very important, especially during the processing and retailing stages, is that climate change adaptation, especially temperature increases, may also increase your capacity and the complexity of your processes to effectively contribute to climate change mitigation. And this is because there will be a higher need of energy, for example, for the cooling processes, or to import raw materials from other countries, from other areas. So overall, your footprint can increase only because you're trying to adapt your businesses. So this, why am I saying this? Of course, not to discourage the process, but just to say that this is no longer a process that can be manage and handle closed door, indoor, in your company. You have to expand it. And as the EU strategy, for example, just to use it as an example, of course, there are different strategies across the globe, but what they are looking is from farm to fork. So we have to look at the sector overall. We cannot do as we have often done until now, just looking at the issues and problems of one specific part of the process and not of the global complexity of it. And that means that we need also as companies to exit our bubbles and start discussing more with our suppliers, but also with those that guarantee the distribution and marketing of our products. Now, good elements, food systems can play a key role in moving climate change into an opportunity. So far, I always see that is considered a major issue, people desperate, looking for solutions, spending money here and there, but it's not always so dramatic. It is dramatic because the situation is what it is. No need to sugar the pill. But what is good is that there is a response. The nationally determined contributions of 90% of the countries refers to agriculture as not only a need in terms of adaptation, but also a solution to mitigation if properly managed. IPCC is the International Panel for Climate Change, sees a major opportunity, especially through land-based mitigation and land use changes to cut down emissions. And this is already reflected in the market. We have a potential economic value of mitigation options is only between 45 and 300 million, a 5.7 trillion potential annual societal returns, and opportunities for over 4.5 billions. Now, and then what we have is that this is what the theory says, but we already have that already over 30% of assets under management follows environment and social safeguards factors. But let's look very quickly at what can be done, because it's easy to say what is the situation. But how do we do the greening? I have seen a few of the questions that were posted while registering, and this reinforces our position that is 90% of your investment have to be before investment, and most of the time does not require companies to spend too much money. What is very important is to understand what is happening from a climate perspective. Yes, climate is changing globally, but with different characteristics at the local level, and within countries, even intra-countries. So what you have to see is what is your specific value chain, and what are the factors that are exposing it to adverse impact of climate change. Now, this is a great opportunity if you think about it, because it will allow you to really understand the entire extent of your processes, your supply chain, get in touch with all those that are involved, above and below it, your position, and it will allow you really to have data about what is most relevant and which external factor can impact your value chain. Because knowing your supply chain and involving your partners will allow you not only to be more adaptive, so to reduce your adaptation deficit, so therefore protect your business, but also reduce emissions, because by doing this, you're going to optimize. So where to invest? Again, I've seen from the question, what should I do with livestock? What should I do if I want to do dairy? What should I do here and there? There is no one-fit-all solutions. There are only processes, and this is a very important point. You will not have one investment in one specific technology that will solve issues, but you will have to follow a process. That means that you will have, as we said above, you will have to start understanding, even for, and mostly for small and medium enterprises, where are the elements of exposure of your processes, of your supply chain, and of your distribution one. And then at that stage, you will have the opportunity to optimize, to understand where you need to enhance your human capacities in order to address and mitigate this exposure risk, and then obtain a solid amount of data that will allow you to be transparent and accountable. Let me stress on these 2 points, because more and more the market requires companies to be transparent about climate, about sustainability, about the huge number of issues that are all related to environment and others like social issues. But if you don't have reliable data, for example, you will not be able to brand in Europe because of the, for example, the new greenwashing against greenwashing directive, or many others new directives that are coming. Now, only at that stage, only once you will have all, let's say, your homework well done, you will be able to decide where to invest. If it's on technology, if it's on IT, if it's on human resources, if it's on sourcing products from a more diverse set of providers, or from other countries, or from other things. Now, one last warning is that, again, there is no one-fit-all, and there are no proclamas. I really urge you to pay attention to the mainstream of the media when they like to stress on a number of elements, like, for example, when you say local value chains, or organic, or these are not necessarily at all good things, but they are not necessarily better than importing products from other regions of countries, because, again, as we said at the beginning, agriculture and the agri-food systems, they are not linear processes. So it really depends on the context, and you will be able to be aware of this context only once you have approached climate change and climate change responses as a process, and not as an action. Now, once all of these are done, then you will be able to access and involve the finance institutions with very precise and well-tailored investment proposals that will also guarantee at the same time the informations related to transparency, accountability, and availability of information related to emissions and all the remaining aspects that are very much needed, not only for you, but for everybody to fulfill Paris alignment requirements. One last point, what we have seen, why we are saying and insisting so much on this slide, is because after talking with a large number of companies in our activities, what we have realized is that very often companies are not aware of they can do or what they should, what they can do to mitigate or what they should do to protect and de-risk their businesses. And very often these do not require massive investments, but really requires a strong and thorough knowledge of processes, so to be able to optimize. And one last point on optimization is especially regarding energy. As we said before, energy is one of the variables that are most of the time external to your processes. That means that if you are in a country, in a context where renewable energies are not available in large shares of the energy mix, consider that EU is at 37% and globally we are at 24%. So that means that hardly you will be able to access 100% renewable energy source, but that should push you to optimize, to see where energy can be saved and where energy can be better used in your processes. And again, understanding your supply chain, your processes, your partners will allow you major optimization results also in the energy framework, and therefore in reducing your emissions also outside your areas of direct influence. Richard, with that, I'll close the presentation and give you back the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jacopo, for this very clear and interesting survey on the complexity of agri-food systems under the effect of climate change. You described how these systems are both causes and victims of climate change. You spoke about the vulnerability of certain value chains, and you spoke about how these are complex and non-linear processes that are also context-based, being very specific to national contexts and the role of energy policy, for example, in those contexts. You also pointed out how these challenges cannot be managed at the company level alone, but the company has to engage with the national situation, with its supply chain, with the demands of its export markets, on the basis that no one size fits all. Having said that, against this very sort of challenging context, there are, as you described, huge economic opportunities arising from climate change, climate action in agri-food systems. And those companies that meet that challenge head on will be able to optimize and gain competitive advantage. And so with that, I'd like to turn now to our first panelist, who is Mesut Avci. He's the Chief Engineer for the EBRD's Turkey Green Economy Financing Facility, and also for the related program that we have, which is the Sustainable Energy Finance Facility in Turkey. Mesut is a seasoned sustainable energy and resource efficiency professional with more than 15 years of respective work experience in the USA, Turkey, Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia. He is a certified energy manager and a certified measurement and verification professional. In particular, he is highly experienced in providing advanced analytic and strategic consultancy services to public institutions, international financial institutions, energy service companies, and small and medium-sized enterprises. He conducts industrial energy and resource efficiency assessments, and he performs measurement and verification in compliance with the International Performance Measurement and Verification Protocol. Mesut, can I start by asking you briefly to introduce the Green Economy Financing Facility and by explaining how SMEs can benefit from it?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Richard, for the introduction. And I'd like to start with thanking all the participants for their time and interest. I'll start with introducing the Green Economy Financing Facility concept, which is what we call shortly as GEF concept. So GEF is basically, it's like a framework operation of under which EBRD's credit lines are dispersed to are allocated to eligible commercial banks and leasing companies for on lending to private and municipal subsector borrowers, which include the industrial companies and commercial enterprises, for particularly sustainable energy, which is energy efficiency and renewable energy, as well as resource efficiency and environmental investments. And GEF is actually operated in, I believe, 29 countries, EBRD countries of operations, and working with close to like 200 local financial institutions. There has been like 6.3 billion euro of worth of credit lines have been in place with all these GEF countries. So in each GEF country, there is a technical assistance team, which basically consists of a team of experts, including, like, for example, as you introduced myself, I'm working as a chief engineer in GEF Turkey, and this technical assistance team is just providing technical support to participating financial institutions as well as these potential sub-borrowers. And if we look at the aim of this entire GEF facility, GEF concept is like first, increasing financing intermediation for renewable energy or sustainable energy, resource efficiency, and environmental investments to basically fill the sector's remaining financing gaps in these countries. And second, improving the participating financial institutions' skills in project appraisal of a broader set of eligible technologies. So basically providing capacity building to these participating financial institutions. And also like increasing the private sector's involvement in the development and financing of these sustainable energy and resource efficiency or environmental investments. So how we do this is this comprehensive technical assistance package that is provided by the GEF projects. So we basically do a couple of things. Like, first of all, these sub projects are applied to the GEF financing, and then we, as a technical assistance team, we determine the eligibility of these sub projects based on a set of criteria that's set by the EBRD. And the second thing is like we also perform an impact analysis of these sub projects, as well as like we also go out and perform client visits or like walkthrough or detailed resource efficiency audits at the potential sub-borrowers' facilities, mainly to identify and help them develop resource efficiency or sustainable energy sub-projects. So it's not only like building capacities of the participating financial institutions in project appraisal, but also supporting the potential sub-borrowers, which includes the SMEs, to identify and develop their projects. So eventually, these projects will be applied to the facilities for financing support, basically. So it's a quite interesting concept, and so maybe like one thing to mention is like there are two types of sub projects. So we categorize these sub projects into two groups. One is what we call pre-approved technology sub-projects, and the other one is like assisted sub-projects. For the assisted sub-projects, these are relatively larger sub-projects. We, as I mentioned, we perform an assessment of eligibility of these sub-projects, and And just to make sure that these projects, these sub-projects they comply with the requirements and the criteria that are set by the EBRD, and perform these impact analysis and prepare the respective reports accordingly. And the second one is what is interesting, and what I would like to mention a little further is the food technology sub-projects, which is EBRD developed a tool. It's called like a green technology selector tool. It's like an online platform which that offers a country-specific directory of products and vendors and other like high-performing technologies. So this is basically a set of pre-approved technologies and pre-approved equipment. And so if your sub-project is basically qualified for these technologies or can be considered under green technology selector, then we provide an automated assessment, and we provide an eligibility certificate. And this tool does not only streamline the process of assessment of these sub-projects, but also provide a list, sort of like a green list of EBRD approved, high performing, eligible, EBRD eligible technologies and products and vendors and suppliers, so the clients can just reach out to and easily identify what type of technology, what type of equipment or vendor and manufacturer that they would like to work with. And this tool would also like help with the vendors or suppliers or the manufacturers to go ahead and register for free their products, and they can market and they can sort of like promote their products and promote their operations, not only in the country that they are operating, but also like globally in these 29 countries. So it's like a quite interesting list. And this list, when we say like high performing technologies, I mean, obviously not all of the equipment or projects could be categorized under this approved technology sub-projects, because I mean, in order to do so, your technology or your equipment should have some technical attributes for you for EBRD or for the technical consultants to check in advance and sort of like standardize its performance. And for those technologies or for those equipment, this list is quite useful, as I mentioned. So talking about the agricultural and food sectors, looking at the list of green technology selector technologies and equipment, I mean, I can just highlight that, for example, boilers, heat pumps, or a lot of like horizontal process technologies, or what we call auxiliary technologies or auxiliary equipment, such as electric motors, pumps and fans or compressed airs, are all listed in these green technology selectors. So I highly recommend the participants to go ahead and check this GEF Green Technology Selector website. And particularly talking about the agricultural sector, there are like some vehicles such as like tractors or harvesters that are all listed in this Green Technology Selector, as well as like some irrigation technologies, greenhouses or drip irrigation lines, and land preparation and seeding, particularly for again agriculture. And one important aspect is also like water reuse and recovery, as well as the water efficiency technologies too. So I know we have limited time, so I would like to share like one quick. Well, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to come in, Mr. Thank you very much for comprehensively introducing the GAP system, financing, advisory, but also technology. I think the link to the Green Technology Selector website has just been shared in the webinar. But can I ask you just to say a little bit more about this technology selection? You know, how does the EBRD select technology that meets the level of being included in this selector? And you mentioned that there's a different approach by country. And so how is the differentiation made by country? And then you also talked about the importance of including and getting, in a way, additional traction from vendors and suppliers in different markets. Maybe you can say a bit about that as well. And then, indeed, I want to ask you for a couple of examples after that.
Sure. So we talked about high performing green technologies, and what it means is like it's like basically the products that comply with the performance criteria EBRD set for that selected country. And what is this performance criteria is basically it is defined per technology category and also like per country. And how it is defined is like they require a performance improvement of at least like 20% beyond a baseline of typical replacement technology. So say we just talk about like a typical technology in one country. So first, like a brief market assessment is performed to understand the market dynamics of that particular equipment in that country. And when EBRD sets this criteria, it makes sure that the performance criteria is set at least like 20% higher in terms of performance, higher of this reference baseline. So that's why for each country you have different types of baselines and different types of performance criteria. Not only like not like for each country, but EBRD introduced like a clustered approach for this. So there are like 4 clusters, and each country is positioned in one of those 4 clusters. And for each cluster, the higher cluster you have, like obviously the more stringent criteria, more strict criteria you will face. So that's a clustered approach to how EBRD does it. And one question again, I think it's better to elaborate more on that. Like, how can we include our equipment, or what type of technologies or what type of equipment are included in this green technology selected? Is like, it's basically just to give you an example for the electric motors. So performance of electric motors can be determined, can be evaluated, or can be assessed by just looking at their energy efficiency ratings or energy efficiency class, because there's like a rating class that's introduced by electric motors. So that's why it's like it can be standardized. But for like some process machines, some complicated machinery, it may not be possible, obviously. So that's why one thing is like this for any type of technology or for any type of equipment that should just go on the green technology selector, one data model and one baseline establishment should be conducted, and some technical attributes that will introduce that particular technologies or equipment's performance should be available and should readily be available in maybe like their data sheets or their technical documentary. So that's yeah, I think that's another thing. Did I answer all of your questions, Richard, or no?
No, that's great. Thank you, Mesut. Can I just ask you to close by going from the system that you described to maybe one or two specific applications, so companies in the agri-food processing sector that have benefited from the GAF?
Sure. Yeah, one thing that I mentioned is like what we provide is we provide client visits or walkthrough energy audits, and sometimes like detailed energy audits. One of the resource efficiency audits that we previously performed at a both agriculture and food processing facility was quite interesting. So I would like to share a couple of resource efficiency measures that we identified in this facility. One of which is like, it was like an organic food processing plant. So they were processing organic fruits and vegetables. And just because some of their products did not meet the client's specifications requirements in terms of like size or texture, these had to just go waste. So it was quite unfortunate because, I mean, these organic fruits and vegetables just, went a long way to be produced and to be just processed and everything. So it not only costs a lot, but also it's like a huge effort that's associated with up to that point. But they had to just go waste just because they did not meet the size or texture requirements of the clients. And what they were doing with these wastes is just sending it to the for like feedstock, or they were just sending it to like waste to energy facilities to become like biogas and stuff like that. And we said like this is in terms of like waste management, there should be like a better ways to really like manage this waste to a higher added value waste management. So we recommended that they should just go ahead and consider a prey processing line, and they can just produce prey, organic prey for like maybe ice creams or like for some other byproducts, and they can just start considering different types of process line. And eventually they just did that, and they turned this huge waste into a great opportunity, not only economically but also like environmentally. That's one thing that I think that's worth mentioning. And another thing, like a very quick another example in the same facility is that they were using some well water to cool down some of the processes for cooling purposes, and this water was quite clean. And once these once it's like cooled down, I mean, obviously the temperature of the water just increased a lot, and they were just discharging this water. And then we said, this is clean water, and it has like it's like high temperature water. Why don't you just install like a heat exchanger and capture the heat? So you would not only save energy, but also like you can use this now cooled down water for your like washing purposes, because they were using well water to wash their initial fruits and vegetables in the beginning of their process. So with this like a very small project, like we did not only like save significant amount of energy, but we also like saved a lot of like well water, so which is both climate change mitigation and adaptation projects, and it was a great success and very little investment with very little investment. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Mesut. I'm going to turn now to our next panelist, who is from Jordan, Abdulrahman Al-Zubaydi, and he is from eVest, which provides comprehensive hydroponic vertical farming solution to farmers in Jordan. So this agtech company currently has two solutions. The first is a capsule farm that can be installed in a single unit, and it also can provide custom-built farms. iVest works to make investment in agriculture safer, 5 times more profitable and sustainable through the capsule, which is their proprietary indoor farming unit that is 40% more energy efficiency and that can grow up to 200 or more plants per square meter. iVest has operations in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, as well as a number of R&D partnerships. Abdulrahman, welcome. And can I start by asking you to tell us a little bit about your business, and when and how did you get the idea for it?
Thank you again, UND Party, for this kind invitation, and thanks to everyone who's attending this session today. So we started back in 2019 because we were actually hit by, we started as a greenhouse, and then we saw the problems and the challenges and the risks within greenhouses. We were hit actually by a storm, and then we wanted to find another way or alternative so that we can control or overcome the risks within agriculture and to make our investment in agriculture safer. And it was the starting point to start exploring solutions in the market for controlling such a risk. And the challenge was actually not only to find a solution that is enabling us to control or overcome this risk, but also to find a solution that is providing us with a financially feasible alternative that is sustainable and that is also profitable as well. And since we couldn't find any, we decided to create our own. And that was the starting point for iVest. I think you're muted, Richard.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me now.
Yeah.
You spoke about the storm that affected your business, which led to the decision to set up iVest. But can you say a bit more about how climate risks have affected iVest since then? And what are the opportunities and challenges that have arisen, and how did you deal with them?
Sure. So as I told you, so we started as agricultural enthusiasts. We had the team and me had several backgrounds that are not actually related to agriculture. We were in IT, business, innovation, and design. We just simply wanted to invest in agriculture. And what happened is that we created a greenhouse in Jordan Valley. And then a storm hit in 2020, just after we started the first cycle, and the whole project was actually destroyed. So although the climate change was the main reason, because such storms actually previously did not really happen in such a high effect. This was the starting point for us to start looking for these opportunities of finding an alternative in terms of technology, a solution that can prevent such effects to happen to us. How can we become a mutant or immune to this kind of storms or external factors, and how can we control the whole environment in agriculture, and again provide a more efficient solution. And at the end, after around 3 years of R&D, we were able to come up with the capsule. We actually started within an apartment in Jordan, because the concept of the garages are not really available in here. So we rented out an apartment, we insulated one of the rooms, and we started doing R&D for almost a year. Afterwards, we were able to raise our first round of investment, and we started taking this R&D further. And the main focus for us was to actually follow the market needs, provide the region with a solution that actually fits the market needs, because we have special characteristics in our region in terms of what kind of crops that needs to be grown, what kind of prices the crops needs to be actually sold at. And thankfully, currently we are able to sell the kilogram of leafy greens for around 3.5 or 3.6 euros and be also profitable, overcoming the challenge of indoor farming being limited today by or either premium types of crops or needing to sell at really high prices, making it really not an accessible produce to the end consumers today. In our case, we are providing a solution that represents a realistic alternative for the greenhouses in the region in general, and for the GCC in specific, where the harsh climate is actually not enabling for this whole year production ability. In GCC, they have less than 2% of arable land. So having this a new way of doing farming, or creating this cultivatable environments everywhere and anywhere is now possible. And again, it's efficient and it's market driven.
Thank you. That's really interesting. I mean, obviously your company is only 4 years old, but you've already achieved some significant successes and penetrated some important markets. Do you think the risks of climate change are driving up the demand for your solution? Can you sense that? And how do you think your future growth might develop?
That's a pretty interesting question. Definitely yes, especially in Saudi today. So with the new vision of 2030, for example, in Saudi and Qatar, and also in the UAE, we started to see several programs to support these positive actions in response to the climate change, and in their role of also supporting the environment, especially that GCC countries actually are one of the biggest oil producers. So they have this kind of role and believe that they have to also do something good for the environment. And this also opened their eyes governmentally to start focusing on or thinking about food security as well, especially when COVID hit. So both situations or both reasons made investing in agriculture and support to agriculture in the region get really accelerated. And it was really helpful for us. In the Emirates, for example, we recently heard about one of the first agri-tech focused financing product from the Emirates Development Bank. And we're excited to see other banks or other entities actually providing support to such agri-tech solutions. Actually, also Qatar, they have in QDB a special program for indoor farming where they support or provide lower rates for indoor farming entities who are willing to establish indoor farming facilities in Qatar. So such governmental-led actions to enable indoor farming or enable agri-tech in general to get expanded and being more established in the region is actually really interested. And actually we are, Masood was just talking about GIF, and we started our talks with EBRD here in Jordan, because we are planning to get indoor farming listed as one of the categories at GIF. I mean, hopefully we get to be one of the first. But it is pretty interesting. Also, the partners of GIF here in Jordan are really excited for such solutions, because again, it solves the core problems, or one of the core problems that we face when it comes to having a solution for food security and having a solution for having a consistent way of producing our food without being affected by climate change or the results of climate change.
Great, thank you very much, Abdurrahman. So your talk has generated a certain amount of reaction in the chat. So I'm sure a lot of people want to connect further with you afterwards. I'm going to turn now to our last.
Thank you, Richard.
I'm going to turn now to our third and final panelist, who is Kees Kullerman, and he is working as an international advisory team coordinator under the framework of the EBRD's Advice for Small Business program. Kees grew up in the family business, which was processing fruit and vegetables, specializing in pickled vegetables, and he has a long-standing experience in processing, contract farming, and captive farming in Europe and Asia. Currently, he coordinates international advisory projects for EBRD in the agribusiness sector, and he provides also consultancy services to other organizations in this sector. Welcome, Kees. And if I may, I'd like to start by asking you a general question, which is, what are the challenges that agri-food SMEs face in their operations due to climate risks?
Okay, thank you, Richard. I think the biggest challenge which in the agri-food companies have is the disruption, the complete disruption in agriculture. There is too much water, no water, too high temperature, and or too low temperature. This gives all kinds of challenges in the supply chain. You're getting your raw materials or not. Also, what's going on? Also, for the further processing, it's very difficult. For the factories, is water scarcity also a problem? There's not enough water for your processing, and what occurs is also the energy disruption. You get your electricity, you don't get it, and so you have to be resilient to that process. To get first to the agricultural side, sometimes you have to consider if it is valuable to be at that place or to process certain crops. Or what I did, to talk with the farmers and to look for different agricultural systems to be more resilient in the farming. So, to give a small example, instead of seeding, you go for transplanting and with small plants. In agriculture, using mulch to control the growing, and with drip irrigation, and that install it more professional than let's say an hokey-pokey system. Also with the water, you know, the water is coming at the moment when you don't want to have it, and it is not there when you need it. So we introduced some water harvesting programs at farmers and also at the factory. We had also water harvesting, that we have enough water which is going in the groundwater, to pump it out later to do our processes. And I think such kinds of things, you have to look at the very practical what you can do. Also, what we can do at the let's say at the climate change to do, look at packaging. I was always a very strong person to package, to do the transport packaging in cartons instead of plastic foil. It's more expensive, but I think it's more sustainable to do it in, let's say, cartons which are coming from reused cartons. I think that the simple things which you can do as SMEs to promote that. The only thing is, it's a bit more expensive. So you have to convince your customer that, okay, if we want to do the steps, you have to pay that half cents per product more, because it's not very substantial, more expensive. And also developing new products which you can process, which you can develop in the climate change. So if you look at the value chain, not everything is available anymore. So you have to be also creative to find new products from and creating new products for the crops which are coming from the fields. And I think that with new energy sources like solar energy, wind energy, and etc., you can have a big big impact on your footprint, so to say. But most of all, I think for the SMEs is to really look at your processes and what are you doing and how can you make the world a little bit better, and communicate that with your workers, with your customers, with your suppliers. So be creative, and for an entrepreneur it's very simple. When it becomes difficult, it becomes more interesting to do business because you can have a better result at the bottom line. So when it is easy, everyone can do it. So maybe it's the right time we're living in. It's becoming a little bit more difficult, and then you can have the distinction between the good creative entrepreneurs and people who sitting and do not enough. So that's what I want to add to it, and I think we have a time limit. Back to you, Richard.
Thank you very much, Kees. In a way, you've already answered my second question, which was about what are the greatest opportunities for SMEs, because if I understood you correctly, the opportunities arise from dealing smartly with the challenges in the ways that you suggested, looking at packaging, looking at solutions like water harvesting, looking at processes in particular. But is there anything else you want to add in terms of where you think the big opportunities ahead might be for SMEs as a result of climate change?
Just to give a small example for this morning, before we had a meeting, I was discussing for a project in Central Asia, and lots of greenhouses are built over there because they do not have in the winter the tomatoes, etc. And this project is interesting because it's at the terminal heat place, so they do not have to use fossil fuels to heat the greenhouse, and so they can have their own hot water. They have enough hot water and make their own electricity. So that would be a great sustainable project. Problem is the investment is quite heavily, because it's in a harsh climate, very cold in the winter, very hot in the summer. Some winter over there and all kinds of things, but technically you can resolve it. And I think that gives some enthusiasm also at my side, that people really think about that, to make, to process, to produce fruits and veg on a sustainable way. And it cannot be more sustainable when you're using hot water from the soil, so thermal heat. And here in Holland, next to where I live in Rotterdam, we're also using some thermal heat at greenhouses. But it is a bit expensive over here because you have to dig a hole of I think 4 to 5 kilometers. So.
Great, thank you very much, Kees, for introducing this the opportunity of geothermal energy as well. Okay, I think we're reaching now the end of our time, and there may be some questions. Oh yes, some questions have just appeared on my screen, which quite a lot of questions actually. Thank you for all of those. I will try and put them to members of the panel. The first is about livestock farming, which hasn't been discussed so far, but maybe this would be a question actually to Jacopo. how can livestock farming be adapted to climate change?
Thank you, Richard. This is a kind of $1 million question in the sense that it depends. There is no answer. Definitely one of the elements that is common almost everywhere is the increase in temperature, and there is a direct relation between the quality and quantity of milk produced and temperature. Now, this will impact livestock for sure, but livestock has a long way to optimize. Livestock is one of the sectors that remain more, let's say, unadvanced in the past 20, 30 years, especially rangeland and non-intensive livestock. So to control temperature, one of the few things you can do is to start optimizing your production, start investing in better barns. Very often when you go in rural areas and you look at how animals are kept, I mean, I think climate change is one of the last of the issues because of poor infrastructure. So already investing in efficient infrastructure is a good investment to adapt to climate change. And if you invest one more tiny percentage more, you can also use your infrastructure to place solar panels and produce also energy, and therefore contribute to mitigation or at least to reduce your energy dependency from external sources. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Jacopo. There's a question about available taxonomies to identify green agriculture and digital tools for MRV systems. I don't know, Mesut, could you have a go at this one?
You said me, Richard, or Jakub? Oh, sorry.
Well, it can be Jacopo. I was suggesting Mesut, but maybe if Jacopo prefers to take it.
Sure, yeah. I'm gonna leave it to Jacopo. Yep.
Thank you. Look, again, it really depends on the context. Like in the EU region or in the neighboring country, the EU taxonomy is and should be the reference for all elements related to climate and therefore MRV and emissions. Then it really depends on the country and the context. It's not, again, there is no one solution for everywhere. And these elements like taxonomy, especially for MRV system, are dependent on the governance and the legal framework of where the MRV is used. But in general, globally, you have the IPCC and the UNFCCC convention, and then it's the state or the federation where the activity is executed. Over.
Thank you, Jacopo. So I think the next one will be for Mesut, which is a question I think quite suited to the spirit and the practical approach of the GEF. The question is, how can going green positively impact my bottom line?
Sure. Yeah. So maybe I can just give an example in the GEF components. So especially like for sustainable energy, and the bottom line, like we always say, like for the commercial enterprises, energy costs are significantly increasing, and right now, like investing in energy efficiency and renewable energy is not optional. It's actually both for environmental sustainability, but also like the sustainability of your operations, because energy costs are a significant portion of like many sectors. So you need to really like reduce your energy costs by investing in energy efficiency and renewable energy, so that you just can become more and more competitive in the market. So that's just to become competitive and just to become like a sustainable enterprise. You really need to invest in sustainable energy. But it's also like the environmental side. Like, for example, for the water, just to give you an example, in Turkey, like water does not come with like a huge cost. So investing in water efficiency is not a priority for many enterprises in Turkey because the financial feasibility of water efficiency investments are not as good as energy efficiency or renewable energy investments. But the enterprises must also think about the climate adaptation point of view. Water scarcity is a huge issue, is a huge upcoming issue for not only Turkey but for many countries. So you really need to become self-sustaining in terms of like water consumption. You really need to like become more and more water efficient if you want to continue operating in this sector. So you have to and you need to prepare yourself from today, because if you like invest in these type of technologies in the future, it's most likely it'll be like too late. So just to sum it up, not only like from the economical or like the financial side of it, but also like environmental side of it, you really need to consider and invest in green projects, I would say.
Thank you, Mesut.
Richard, can I add some practical example to that?
Yes, of course.
So I see in some greenhouse projects where the water is cheap, they have to hydroponics. So they supplying water with fertilizer to the, let's say, cucumber plants, and then dispose the drain water. But you can reuse the drain water. You have to invest, of course, in cleaning it, get the bacteria out of it. But I see quite a few projects in Central Asia where they're not doing it because the water is cheap. And I think we as bankers, we have to look critical to it. On top of that, if you're reusing the water, you can save 30 to 40% of water, but also you're saving on fertilizer cost because the fertilizer is still in the water. You can reuse it, use it again in the cucumber plants. So I always recommend that in my projects to look at that and to make a focus. But it has to come from the entrepreneur, of course.
Thank you, Mesut and Kees. I would like to give the next question to Abdul Rahman. It's about technologies, and it's an open invitation to give information and ideas for development about new types of green technology.
Sorry, again?
Could you give us some ideas and some information about new types of green technology?
Yeah, definitely. So indoor farming, as I was saying, one of the most important or one of the most recent green technologies for producing our food is today becoming indoor farming. The challenge, however, was the high consumption of energy, because such technologies usually will rely on a new electrical components, and with that the need for energy actually increases. But with technology, actually, we also have new advancements, and with each new innovation, the cycle goes every time with high cost, and then it drops, similar to what happened in electricity cars. So LEDs, for example, was one of the most important factors that have had a huge effect on making production indoors actually really efficient. Before that, it was not really feasible to do that. And integrating this with other green technologies such as solar panels, making it really efficient and making the whole production a collection or a consortium of green technologies integrated together. So these are similar, or a couple of concepts or examples of what kind of green technologies we can see today in the region or globally to be used in food production. We've also seen a couple of applications of LEDs and a couple of new technologies for plantation that are not only using hydroponics or the water cycle, but that is also using aeroponics, which is the vapor of the water itself, to produce a higher quality of food. But again, new technologies such as these today do not really provide the efficiency we need. However, by time we will be seeing these technologies or new advancements become more and more available and become more and more efficient, especially with the fact that we are seeing such new financing methodologies or entities or products enabling individuals to start testing these products and new technologies or green technologies out. And by time, while the demand will increase, we will be seeing these technologies becoming less and less expensive and more efficient.
Thank you, Abdulrahman. I have a question which I'd like to direct to, I think, Kees, and it's about territorial approaches to local development. And in particular, how do we move? There's a bit of feedback on the line. I don't know, maybe somebody can go on mute. The particular question is how we move from value chains to value networks with mutually reinforcing clustering around central production facilities. Kees, do you want to take that one?
Yes, I take that one. Yes, this is always coming back to look at cooperatives working together with companies, or that processing companies also clustering a little bit together to give excess heat to other companies. I think to start with the first one, with cooperatives, farmers' cooperatives are very useful as long as there are no politicians are involved. You know, we Dutch, we're famous for our farmers' cooperatives, but they are founded by the good farmers, and they were only on invitation. And even today, with the big new cooperatives of greenhouse vegetables, they also collected by invitation only. And I think that is one of the key issues for the farmers' cooperatives. But the cooperative is not only working together, but is also sharing information. So I coming from my background, my family. So I had 11 uncles with a greenhouse with flowers, that so to say. And they had monthly or 3 weeks, they had a so-called study group. But they were sharing with each other the problems and, of course, the opportunities and what they're doing. And they were learning from each other. And what I see in many of the, unfortunately, the countries of where we operate with the bank, that everyone is holding their, they see each other not as colleagues, but as hard competitors. So they're not sharing the information, I think, and that's the basic of a very good farmers' cooperative. On the other, and also when you're working together, you can also have a big, strong negotiation tool to your clients. And I think there are opportunities, but you have to see. It has to be my mentality. So I think at the moment, when there are SME companies who want to do this and sharing information and helping each other to become further and to make each other and themselves stronger, I think there is a big opportunity. But it has to do with mentality.
Thank you very much, Kees. A question for Jacobo about the potential of insectoprotein as feed for poultry and fish.
Another excellent question. Both are being quickly developed. Very interesting is that both are insectivores, but we had to have an EU directive to allow insects to be put in, for example, like in chicken feed. So yes, I do see an advance But again, it really depends, because it really depends on the amount of energy, on the amount of work that is needed. Energy is and will remain for the next years the most challenging limiting factor, especially when it comes to emissions. So very good to use technologies, but technology per se is not the answer. I think insects are great, holds great potential, mostly because of the conversion ratio between kilograms of feeds and kilogram of meat that we can obtain. But again, there is a large number of countries that still forbids the use of insects in food for humans. So it's more of an issue of regulatory. It's more of a regulatory issue in some cases, but the technology is there and the potential has been evaluated. The FAO has already published a number of reports on the topic, and we are also currently studying this with colleagues from the agribusiness sector. Over to you, Richard.
Thank you, Jacopo. And I think there, I'm afraid we're out of time. So I'd just like to conclude by thanking very much our panelists and speakers. We heard today a lot of things, a lot of interesting information. From Jacopo at the beginning, we heard about the complexity of the agri-food system and the need really for companies to have an all-round awareness around that, about their national situation, their national energy systems, but also in particular about the sensitivity of their supply chains and the demands related to climate of their export markets. Then we heard from Mesut about the GEF program that the EBRD has, and the combination between finance and advice and technology, and how this can unlock very practical savings in the bottom line of companies benefiting from those three inputs of finance, technology, and advice. We also heard from Kees about the challenges that companies face, in particular with disruptions and volatility in water and energy supply, and the need to be agile in the solutions that come for that, but also looking very practically, for example, at packaging and at processes. And then we also heard from Abdel Rahman about the importance of enthusiasm, as he described his firm of agricultural enthusiasts, and it's enthusiasts who come with the solutions and the technological solutions as well to the problems and the challenges that the climate change brings. So thank you everybody for participating today. Thank you for your very good questions. I hope you found this webinar useful, and I need now to inform you about the next webinars in this series. So in a couple of days, on the 30th of November, we have a webinar on green fashion, so how to weave sustainability into textile and apparel. And then on the 5th of December, we have hospitality for a resilient future, adapting to climate challenges and seizing opportunities in tourism. And then finally, on the 7th of December, we have building climate resilience, managing climate and supply chain challenges in construction. You should be able to find links in the webinar event page to the GEF, the Green Economy Financing Facility, and also to the GTS, the Green Technology Selector that Mesut referred to. So once again, thank you very much, and I wish you a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Richard. Have a great evening. Bye.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much, Richard, for moderating. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.